They did it. The New York Mets. They did it. Pandemonium at Citi Field. Pandemonium in Milwaukee. And in the biggest moment of his Mets career, in a season that's been the worst of his life in the big leagues, in a stretch where he has struggled to hit a home run, Polar Bear Pete Alonso grabbed his cojones and hit a 3-run shot over the right field wall, down 2-0. Alonso gives the Mets the lead. They tack on insurance, and David Peterson picks up the first save of his life. And the New York Mets advance to the NLDS to play the Philadelphia Phillies. And we're here to talk all about it in a clincher, a playoff round clincher edition, the first in my life as a Mets podcaster. And my old co-host of Amazing But True, Nelson Figueroa, is going to join me. We're going to celebrate together. And we're going to do it all next on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic with Jake Brown.
And it's in there, strike three called. The Mets win the pennant. The New York Mets have won the National League pennant. Put it in the books. The New York Mets, for the first time in 15 years, are champions of the National League.
The sickest New York Mets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Storybook. Something out of a movie. An Oscar winner. Cinema. Scenes. Absolute scenes. At Citi Field in Milwaukee, amongst every Mets fan's living room, couch, bar. You can't write what happened on Thursday night for the New York Mets. In a season that's been full of magic, in a season that's had every unbelievable moment, in a season where this team has showed resiliency over and over and over again, the Mets did it again. Truly something you can't write about. This is the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm your host, Jake Brown. Follow me at Jake Brown Radio. Follow the show at Sick Pod Mets. Smash that thumbs up on YouTube. Comment below. We're reading your comments live right now on YouTube. If you're at work, you're on lunch break, join us. Come join the party. It's a celebration. Nelson Figueroa is going to join me in a few minutes as we do an Amazing But True reunion. In the 4 years of doing the podcast, we never got a clincher. We made the wild card round 2022. We were on the field. I would have been in the Mets clubhouse popping bottles with them if they were to beat the Padres, but they did not. Today it was popping bottles at Citi Field as the Mets were visitors, but we were in the building. And my voice is shot. I got asked to go on WFAN last night. Did that with Keith McPherson for a few minutes just to talk about my time at the watch party. I was on Fox 5 for a clip, New York, talking about the game with Jennifer Williams. Bleacher Report asked me to do a live stream. I didn't have a laptop, and they're streaming. You had to be on a laptop. I couldn't do it. But there was so much to talk about. I was happy to do whatever. And I was going to go live on here. It was just the service on my phone, going to Penn Station. What a trek, what a journey, what a day, what a magical day, and well worth every second of it. To see this Mets team do what they did. Man. Just. It's been a special season. And this team continues to shine in those moments. And in that moment, when I'm screaming Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso, and celebrating, it didn't fully hit me until the ride home and watching the clips, watching the highlights, hearing Howie Rose's call. Howie Rose, who asked my would-be mother back in 1983 on a date, And she started talking to my dad at the time. Howie Rose has a special place in my heart because maybe he could have been my father, or I wouldn't be here if Howie Rose makes that call a few weeks earlier. Howie Rose made a call on Thursday night that will live in Mets lore, that will live in Mets infamy. And they played it on the flight with the team, and the team heard it, and he hugged Pete, and rightfully so. Howie, like one of us, a diehard Mets fan. He gets paid to call the games of his favorite team, a miraculous job. And while he didn't make the call to my mom in 1983 to go on a date, which who knows, maybe that leads to marriage, and maybe I'm Jake Rose, or maybe I'm not here today. But because Howie made that call 3 weeks late, I am here today. And as dumb as that sounds, as ridiculous as that sounds, he holds a special place in my heart, partially because of that. And the other part is because he's the broadcaster of my favorite team. And that moment was needed. That moment was not needed just for Pete Alonso, but just needed for this fan base. After Pete dropped a pop-up a few innings before, and me and everyone else was calling for his head, I've said over and over, I'd rather them not re-sign Pete Alonso. And today's not the day to talk about his future, really, because the Mets have more baseball games to play on this miraculous run. Sign him, don't sign him. Either way, I'm fine with it at this point, but that cemented his Mets legacy. All it took was that one swing of the bat. And we said he's due. We said tonight, please, Pete, show up. And in a moment where the team was dead, where their backs were against the wall, where they could not manifest, they could not muster a single run, down 2-0. He comes up in a position where a double play secures the end of his Mets career, ends the Mets season. A strikeout, you're pissed off. And then it, as usual, would come down to Candelita, as it has all season. A sac fly, you say, all right, fine. But the one thing he could have done to get all of us haters off his back, to shut us all up, and to give us reason to celebrate Pete Alonso's a New York Met, was a home run. It's one of those moments you're living in the moment, you're watching it go over the wall. And, I wasn't recording it till after. So I felt it in that moment because, listen, I didn't expect it. And it happens. And the amount of strangers I hugged, the amount of high fives I made with people I'll never see again, likely. Making new friends, high five, just hugging strangers. It was a hugging strangers moment. And I had to be there at Citi Field because if it was going to end there, I wanted to be in the building for this team for this season, and it's not. The New York Mets will have home playoff baseball on Tuesday against the rival Philadelphia Phillies. At the end of August 31st, September 1st, I moved out of Astoria, moved out of New York. Moved out of New York for the first time as an adult. I had been there since college, Hofstra for 5 years, Astoria for 10. And I didn't know when I'd be back. I didn't know what this team would do. And I moved to Philly, and a place I've been to 3 or 4 times in my life. And it was brutal. And now this team plays the Philadelphia Phillies for the first time in the history of the franchise in October. And it feels like it was meant to be. It was written in the stars. Whew. And I know it's just baseball, but one of those moments that lives on for the rest of your life. It lives on. It's something you don't forget. And this game is special. And people don't like it. They say it's too slow. Well, go read a book. Go do something else. We love this game. And we love this team. And they've given us reasons to pull our hair out. Me, I got none left because of the New York Mets. But on Thursday night, they gave us a reason to smile, cry, hug a stranger. And now they're coming to Philly, 20 minutes from where I am. My favorite team followed me into October. And man, how special would this team be if they make the World Series? And if they don't, the season's still been storybook. And something we'll never forget. If they lose to the Phillies, it happens. But man, this team feels like they could go deep into October. Whether it's a Subway Series again, it would be poetic. For the last 5 years, I was covering New York sports. I was doing a dream job and getting to watch my favorite teams, going to a ton of games, meeting people, going to events. Had a lot of cool access with what I was doing. Could get credentialed to any game I want. Was credentialed to every Ranger game. Got credentialed for the playoffs 2 years ago for the Mets. And, that access in some ways was taken away from me. But I'm still there. And I'm still here. And I'm still at the ballpark. And that passion for my teams, the passion for New York sports will never leave. Whether I go to tech, sales, get out of the business, work in a different state, it's hard to take that New York out of you. It's hard to take that grit out of you. And the Mets showed that grit. They showed that determination, that resilience, that Mets magic. And they said, we're not done yet. And it meant a lot for me personally, to be honest. It's been a tough year for a lot of people. A lot of lives lost. Everything, the economy, politics, like Israel, everything that's happened in the world. There's been a lot of bad things happening, period. And there will be more. We go to watch this team to kind of take away from those bad things, from those moments. And the Mets are giving us a reason to celebrate. And we want more. And we'll get more. Because Saturday, the Mets and Phillies will face off in Philadelphia for Game 1 of the National League Division Series. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Jake, you're a legend. We need a polar bear riding grimace. Are you going Saturday City Field? Apparently, brother's favorite part magical. Baseball is life. It takes you away from the wrong things that are happening. And this team just continues to capture our hearts. And, the Phillies are a better team, but the Mets lose, so be it. But that's why you feel like they're going to win. All these teams sitting back waiting. The Mets just keep playing, finding ways to win. And speaking of guys, people losing lives, Brandon Nimmo losing his grandmother 1 hour before the game, not really telling anyone, just going out and playing, coming out with a massive hit in the ninth inning. How poetic that the faces of the Mets, arguably their three best players, at least offensively, Francisco Lindor walk, Brandon Nimmo single, Pete Alonso home run. You can't write this script. This is a movie. Lindor, the captain, face of the team, working a long at bat against the best closer in baseball this year, Devin Williams, finding his way on base. And it took a check swing, nearly swung, but he got it. Safe. Boom. Go to first base. Vientos out. Nimmo, learned about the death of his grandma before the game, comes up with a single. First and third, one out. You're thinking to yourself, double play. Works it to 3-1. a pitch on the outside corner that maybe, in the last couple of weeks he takes. Pete Alonso swings it to right field. We're at Citi Field like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. OMG, OMG, OMG. Right fielder going back. He can't rob it. He can't rob it. Bangs into the wall. It makes it over. And a Mets fan in Milwaukee catches it. Euphoria. This season is just special, man. You can't write that. And then the insurance run, huge, because you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, Diaz just used 5 outs. I'm not going to use it for 8 outs. You see Peterson warming, you're like, wow, David Peterson for the save. You're also thinking to yourself, hey, we got a lead now. If we win, we want David Peterson to start Saturday. I mean, they're talking about Tyler McGill starting. David Peterson threw 7 pitches. I got to believe he could be available to pitch 5 innings Saturday, tomorrow in Philadelphia. But they get the insurance. Peterson gives him a hit. You're like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Strikeout. And then, the poetry continues. Final play of the game. Who gets it? Francisco Lindor. Who takes it to the base and throws it to the guy that just hit the biggest homer of his Mets life and one of the biggest home runs in the history of the New York Mets? Lindor to Alonso. And the New York Mets move on to the National League Division Series. Edgar Allan Poe couldn't write that. J.K. Rowling couldn't write that. Just a storybook finish. And you want to talk about a team that was dead the whole game. Quintana, dominant, 6 innings, gem. Jose Quintana, another guy who in June we were writing off. You know how many guys we wrote off and they came back? In the words of Geno Smith, I didn't write back. Or whatever he said. I think that's what he said. Oh, God. I'm on cloud 9 still. I've been watching highlights, clips, barely slept. Got back at, 2:30 in the morning to Philadelphia. I'm in Cherry Hill. I need to, go outside and go for a walk. There's no one around here. There's no one I got high five. I got to New York and immediately walking the street, people, let's go Mets chants. Almost crying in the street. I am a big baby, but, man, it was so good to be back and be around us, our fans, at the ballpark. It was unbelievable. I would have been so mad if I didn't have gone and watched alone here. Watch these games with loved ones. Go to a watch party. You don't have to drink. If you don't have the money or means, just go somewhere and watch with people, man. These moments don't happen often. The Mets don't make the playoffs a lot. Go enjoy it with people. If you're one of the superstitious people, need to watch yourself, fine. But there's something about hugging either friend, family. I watched with some really good friends of mine, a couple I consider family, a couple Citi Field people I consider family, and giving them a hug and hugging your friends during those moments is something you got to just experience. Because those are the moments you'll remember forever. You remember, you have your kid, wife. I haven't had that. But those are the moments in our sports fandom that you remember forever. And no matter what happens, you'll remember where you were when Pete Alonso hit that home run, when the Mets won that game. You'll remember. I think I'm doing more crying than smiling today. It's just the emotions have hit me after the fact. I was so in the moment of the euphoria, the game the ride home had started, and then today just kicking in, just that moment, Pete, doing the fuck, going on the fan with Keith, it's 8-year-old Jake would be pinching myself right now, just being in the heart of it and just, still doing this show, no matter who watches, whatever, just being able to express my feelings about the team I love. I do Jets Flight Club podcast too. I love the Jets, love the Knicks. I like the Rangers, but it's the Mets for me. If you said get rid of every other team, you can only keep one. I'm keeping the New York Mets. And they haven't given me anything. They have given me no World Series. And the naysayers will say this. You'll say, what are you celebrating for? You just won a wild card round. But if you're a Mets fan, you understood what that meant for us. You understood why you saw the videos you did, why you saw my videos screaming the fans, why you saw playwright people hugging and jumping on top of each other. Because there were a lot of things captured. It was the 2-0 game. It was the comeback. It was this season. It was ending with no potential runs. It was Pete Alonso in the worst stretch of his life, about to be his final at bat as a New York Met. They all came together in this one shining moment. And they all piled together and led the Mets to a place they've never been. Philadelphia in October. Can you believe it? Mets have never played the Phillies in October. I don't know. It's some voodoo kind of stuff, guys. I've been to Philly like twice in my life. Now I was in Philly for a couple weeks. Now Cherry Hill, 20 minutes away from Philadelphia, 15, 20 minutes. And the Mets are playing them for the first time in 63 years of the franchise. That's voodoo kind of stuff. And I'm not saying it's not about me. I'm not saying that, but like how much it hurt to leave New York. We did the move over 2 days. I cried crossing the bridge both ways, leaving New York and getting laid off that week and trying to figure out what's the next step in this insane journey, in this horrible business right now. Everyone getting laid off, too many podcasts, people losing jobs, how difficult it is to make it and the grind that it takes. And that's the Mets aura this year, that grind that we're not giving up just yet. And it's inspired me. It's been inspirational to watch what this team has done for us. It really has. I don't want it to end. I'm going to go Tuesday and Wednesday at Citi Field. Might go this weekend. Not sure yet. I'm leaning towards going. I will likely be at the games. But it's just special. In true Figgy fashion, we are still waiting for him. We'll see if he hops on here. I don't know. He was hosting, I think, the morning show, so I don't know if he will be. Baseball's live, not an RIP. Yeah. Just another layer. Like Nimmo's. And for him to come out with a hit. I mean, if Nimmo doesn't get that base hit, Lindor doesn't get that walk, the home run means nothing. The fact it all set up perfectly. I mean, that's unbelievable. Mets Phillies. Saturday and Sunday at 4:00. It all begins. And they say McGill. I'd like to see if Peterson can go Saturday. On Sunday, I would expect Luis Severino. On Tuesday, I would expect Sean Manaea in Game 3, a Citi Field home game. Oh, man, that plays. When I tell you that place is going to be rocking. Now, the only way it's not rocking here is if the Mets lose both in Philly. Let's hope that. But the Mets can just split at least and have a chance to clinch it. If they split, Tuesday is going to be a zoo at Citi Field. Because listen, 2 years ago, and everyone's talked about like ticket price drop day of, there were some empty seats. That team faded in September. Like that team was a lot less, rootable than this team, which is just giving us magical moment after magical moment. It was different circumstances, I feel like, 2 years ago in that Mets-Padres series. You just didn't feel as good. You felt like, oh, but this thing's going to be over quick, and it was. But this is different. This is different. This team has captured our hearts. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a tough series. Listen, the Phillies beat the Mets 2 out of 3 the last time in Philadelphia. This offense is potent. This is a scary offense, a pretty solid rotation. But like I said, the Mets playing with house money. It just feels right. And I think the Mets win this. How many games? The homer in me wants to say 4. They clinch Wednesday night at Citi Field. The reality in me says this thing's going 5 and into the 9th inning like this whole season has seemed to gone. Extra innings, walk-off, comebacks. Whoever writes it, and if I was smart enough, I would write the story, the Netflix special on this Mets team. Whoever writes it, it's going to be good. It's going to be real good. That Netflix, ESPN, whatever special is, SNY, I guess, will do it. It's going to be good. But it ain't done yet. I will say Mets in 5. I would like it to be 4, though. And I'd like to be oh, man, another clincher at home for an actual game? I mean, I know people saw the videos. The Mets only sold certain sections, first off. Second off, there were about, I think I was told they sold 6,600 tickets yesterday for the watch party. It looked around 5,000. Maybe there were 6,000. I can't guesstimate because it was hard, but by the scoreboard, they didn't sell there because you can't watch the game from there. So people were like, it looks empty. You can't see the scoreboard. So they didn't sell them. They only sold. My ticket was in 19 in Clover Club, but I sat with friends in 124. So 124 to about 106, I believe, 105. The first base side was slammed. That was much more packed. That's the better view because you're not blocked off. So that's why they sold more on that side. So that side was mobbed. You saw the reaction video was that side. But from 106 to 124 is essentially what they were selling. So it was only a limited amount. So for the people who are like, it looks like no one's there, it's because you can't see the game from all over there, and there was no tickets sold there, and they didn't sell up top. And, you can't expect a stadium for a wild card round on a Thursday night to sell out to watch a game and score. That's laughable. It's not the World Series, not the championship. It's the wild card round. And I think they did pretty well for it. And, it's $5, everything, hot dog, popcorn, beers. It was fun. I'm so glad I went. Definitely got experience. They're doing it again Saturday. Part of me is like, should I just go back to New York Saturday and watch there? It was pretty cool, but I'm on the fence just because Philly fans are going to be brutal. I'm not like scared, but Philly fans are brutal in October. And, the moment, if the Mets take the leaders, I'm like, cheer. I might have beer spilled all over. I'm not one of those obnoxious people, but if we're winning or, come back, I'm going to cheer. I'm going to get up and stand and cheer. So I'm not going to sit back and not do anything. Well, let's be real. I'm going. It's right here. It's poetry in motion. And it's gonna be difficult. But you got to remember, the Phillies also have been chilling. Like, there is something to October to a team that continues playing and has good mojo riding. And the Phillies have been relaxing. They're not fresh. They're not ready. As we continue to await if Figgy is going to pop on here. But, it's a season that's had so many moments, and that one just sits right atop. Pete Alonso. And let's talk about Carlos Mendoza. Carlos Mendoza said on Wednesday, and another voodoo kind of thing, he's a power hitter. He'll step up. And he did the next day. The next day. The buttons Carlos Mendoza has pushed. I didn't hate Jose Butto in. I know a lot of people hated it. Jose Butto's been a godsend for this team. So I know I think Mike Bayer tweeted out a stat about when he pitches 2 days after he pitched 2 innings, he has not been good. I mean, stop. Just stop. I mean, come on. Stop. Jose Butto's been incredible for this team. I don't care about the analytics, what they say. That was not the wrong move there. You could argue Jose Quintana stayed in, but he had a lot of long counts in the 6th inning. You knew when he got through that inning, there was no shot there putting him back out there as much as I wanted him to. And he did look gas. There were a lot of 3-2 counts, a lot of foul balls. Like, Quintana was gas. He just gave the Mets everything he had, and that was a big cojones moment from Jose Quintana. Budo imploded. Murphy pushed the right button with the pinch hitter. I thought Murphy, outside of the right button with the pinch hitter, had a terrible game managing. Using Peralta, I thought was stupid. I get why you do it, but like, if you do hold on in advance, this guy pitched 2 days ago. Now you're pitching him again. I mean, it's almost like they just wanted to win the wild card. I thought he managed completely out of desperation, a little over the top. But in the end, his ace closer, dominant closer, blew it, and that's the story. So it's not on Murphy because the guy with the 1.2 ERA, who's been the best closer in baseball, is the one who ended up choking in the end. Like, I'm not going to hate on Jose Budo. And obviously I really won't because we won the game. But for the people like, the criticize, I get it. Every move Mendoza is going to get criticized. And I'm one to criticize managers when they're due. Very much so. If you've followed me over the years, I've done a lot of criticizing managers. That's not one I'm going to get on Mendy for. Because you put Stanek in there and he blows the game. You're like, why using him a second? There's always going to be something for whoever came into that situation. Diaz was interesting going to the seventh. I didn't hate it. It actually worked out great. Peterson save. It was a unique way to finish the game, obviously, including the homer and the top of the ninth. That is a given, but it was a wild way to win that game. But it worked. And that's the thing. Like, Mendoza finds the way. Like, if you push the wrong button with the Budo move, if you thought that was wrong, he made up for it with the other ones. And the Peterson closing the game worked. Now, I will be a little mad if 7 pitches means David Peterson can't go Saturday. As good as Tyler McGill's been, and I know he had the good outing the Sunday, the final home game, but I'd like to see Peterson game 1, Severino game 2, Manaea game 3, and then you could use Peterson again game 4, and then Sevy again game 5 or Manaea. Like, that would be the ideal move. Even if Peterson could just give you 5, that's fine. You got Maytone fresh now. You got Stanek fresh now. Diaz gets his day off Friday. I think he'll be available Saturday. I know he threw a lot of pitches, but I think he'll still be available if they need him Saturday. But, those are the right moves. There was no lefty. There was no Danny Young's going to happen. None of those other guys. Kranick, I know he's on the roster. He ain't coming in unless it's like a blowout. The big boys came in, and Buda's been a big boy. And he's come up with a lot of 6-out moments, a lot of big 7th, 8th inning moments, and I can't hate him. And once again, the team has back, and that's been what's been a remarkable story about this Mets team. Always someone has each other's back. When Diaz imploded on Monday in Atlanta, the offense came back and had his back, and then he came back. This is a band of brothers, as I keep saying, and this team loves each other. The chemistry is incredible, and you see it. You love it. It's been a special ride, and they didn't want it to end. They could have easily folded in that 9th inning and said, we just didn't have it. The better team won. The better team won. The division winner won. But the Mets have been playing important baseball for weeks, for months. The Brewers haven't played an important game in about 6 weeks. The Brewers have had the division locked up for so long that a lot of people want to look at regular season records and the fools that said the Mets should rather play the Padres. I mean, I think the Mets season is probably over now if they play the Padres. And the Mets are lucky that one of the Padres Dodgers, if the Mets could beat the Phillies, will be out. I think that's big for them. I think the Dodgers end up winning, but you're lucky one of those teams is going to get knocked out. Because imagine the Dodgers getting knocked out. And the Mets could get revenge against the Padres. I don't want to look too far ahead, but Mets-Padres revenge in a season that's been full of revenge and storylines. In a season that started playing the Milwaukee Brewers, that the Mets were swept at home by the Milwaukee Brewers. In a season that started one day late. They had to play one day late. They beat the team that beat them to start the season. They beat Rhys Hoskins, who was mocking Jeff McNeil with the crying to start the season. Now Rhys Hoskins is crying and going home. And the Mets are moving on. That's another chapter in this story, and it started in chapter 1. From 0-5 to OMG, it started 0-3, and it started a day late. In a season where the Mets come back late, in the season where it took late games on a Monday, a doubleheader before you got to fly out for the playoffs in less than 24 hours. Don't forget that. In this storybook season, it was late. They were swept. They started bad. The rally pimp came out. Seymour Wiener came out. Grimace came out. Candle Eater arrived. The OMG happened. And the OMG remix comes out on Friday. And if this Mets Phillies series goes the distance, Friday would be game 5. And if the Mets find a way to win this at 4 at Citi Field on Wednesday, the OMG remix with Pitbull carries the Mets to the National League Championship Series. Would be another chapter in this story. And when they talked to the remix, they said next Friday instead of this Friday. Imagine it came out today after winning the round. That's why I thought it would have been smart, because we would have that a repeat today. Every office, every street in New York, OMG remix would be on repeat. All right. He's fashionably late, but he has arrived. And I've done a lot of ranting, so you'll have to watch it back. Nelson Figueroa is with us. Figgy, I did do a lot of cry. I have 2 tissues here. I was crying.
I could see that.
Look good.
Hold on.
Purple suit there. But
hey, you know the deal.
It was, to me, I cried because it was special. And, on a selfish note, the fact that they're playing the Phillies the one time I live in Philly for the first time in franchise history in 63 years, the boys followed me. They said, "We're coming to you, Jake."
Oh, yeah.
And take me through because I was at the stadium. People have seen my videos. They've heard my reaction. Take me through, where you're watching the Pete moment after 2 innings ago. He drops the ball. I call him, "You're fat like me, and don't come back." And we all cursed him.
No, not we. No, you got a mouse in your pocket. Don't go
not
we.
you, but almost the amount of curses and it's all 6,000 fans of Citi Field were cursing at him after that drop pop up and thinking that a double play was going to end that game, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
Just storybooking a storybook season. I'll let you give your side of the story here.
So everything you said up to this point, all the ups and downs, all the different storylines, all the different cast of characters that have come involved with this season, absolutely true. The one thing that I think we've learned about this season, more so than any season in the past, is don't tell me what this team is. This team will tell you what they are. This team will tell you what to believe in, right? We've seen it up and down. What was last year's team? Oh, we've got 2 Hall of Fame pitchers. We got a closer for the ages, even though he got hurt. Before that season, it was a done deal. The Mets were winning the World Series. It was all on paper, and it was just going to be, sparring against different teams throughout the season, and they'll get stronger as the year went on. And they were going to be pace cars with their pitching and the veteran guys, and we're counting on those 2 Hall of Famers to carry the load. And then it all got blown up. Everything got blown up. You had a manager of the year in Buck Showalter, who we thought was going to lead this team to their destiny. He was gone. You finally got a president of baseball operations that they've been waiting for 3 years. And everybody complained that he was from Milwaukee. What does he know about winning baseball? Then when you started doing the math and in the research, well, they went to the playoffs last 4 to 6 years. Every team would give their right arm for that. Then you started going, oh, he's going to hire a new manager. Who's going to hire? Well, there's all these really good names out there. Carlos Mendoza? Why? Everybody. Not one person said what a great hire. Not one. So let's not go back. Meanwhile, this guy should be manager of the year. The only other person I'd say I'd even have consideration for is AJ Hinch, taking the Detroit Tigers from irrelevant to what they.
One wins AL, one wins NL. The Pat Murphy was the NL other guy. I think Mendoza cemented himself as a winner.
But the thing with Pat Murphy was, again, he inherited a team that was already a contender every year. People didn't want to say it because it's, the Cardinals way, and Chicago Cubs are getting now the best manager in baseball and council. So all he did was keep those guys believing in what they already believed in. Where have we heard that from the beginning of the season? Oh, yeah, David Stern said that from the beginning. David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza formulated the plan of no panic. There's no reason to have the urgency of it's a failure or a success early on in the season. We have to learn from those experiences. And they did. 0-5, 11 games under. And then all of a sudden, it began to click. And we didn't see career seasons. We've seen it in the past where it was career seasons from guys, right? 2022, it was career seasons that led guys to the playoffs. We didn't see that this year. Lindor had a great season, on pace to be a career kind of year. But Lindor was your team MVP. Pete had a below average year. Brandon Nimmo, who we were raving about being an all-star, batted 214. 214.
He had a great RBI year, but outside of that, Nimmo had some stretches. He was really bad.
Barely an on-base guy, which was his thing. 3-0, I think it was like 303 or something like that, right? You had a guy who had a candidate for a bounce-back year with the shifts being banned and everything else. Jeff McNeil, batting champion. We never saw that guy. In fact, if it wasn't for him struggling, we never get OMG. Right? We get OMG. Guy's a 300 hitter. Guy's a 300 hitter. He is a pop star now, doing a remix with Pitbull, for Christ's sakes. And the song started out as they heard it in the clubhouse and they loved it. It created a vibe. And that vibe grew. And that vibe became a belief. And that belief became, you know what? This team is more than just entertaining. This team is more than just entertainment when you go to the ballpark. Like, there's not another owner in baseball who would have been like, hey, you know what would be good? Let's have after we beat the Baltimore Orioles, let's just have an impromptu concert where he can sing the song live. That doesn't happen, people. Jose Reyes has had many of Spanish rap album, and they never gave him a chance to have the microphone. And he was a guy that we thought was one of the best players we've ever seen. But a backup infield at 34 years old sparked this team in a way that gave them confidence. And don't worry about anybody else. Don't worry about anybody outside of this. The little slap the butt kind of thing that they were doing as a celebration. Nobody ever told you what that really meant. But you get the gist. You understand what they mean by that, right? So I think one of the things about this season that makes you a believer is this team continues to write the script as they're going along. There's no script written for them. There's no one way to win a ball game. There isn't. Tell me on your bingo card, you had David Peterson locking it down to beat the Brewers. No shot, right? Even the mistake that Carlos Mendoza made of maybe not flip-flopping the relievers in game 2, bringing Maton in against the 7, 8, and 9, and then having Stanek for the top of the order, right? You learn from those experiences.
Also, how about Figgy flipping the lineup where Alonso's back in the cleanup spot? If Alonso's on the cleanup spot, they're like, what happens? Like, I was criticizing them, like, why is he 4? Like, why is Iglesias down to 5? This is so weird. And it worked.
No, it's one of those things where you're learning. My God, this guy, I got a guy from Philadelphia who's nonstop calling me. He wants to do a Skype, and he's got a.
See, that could make you hate the Phillies more. Skype, what is it, 2004? That my Skype used to be Shake and Bake Brown. I was Jake Shake and Bake Brown. That was my Skype username.
That makes sense. So, in essence, let's look at it this way. Minaya was fantastic. Quintana was everything you could have hoped for. Everything you could have hoped for. He bend, don't break. And that's what those veteran guys do. Bend, don't break. Guys were on. There was panic. Second inning. Oh, my God. Here we go. It's going to spiral out of control very quickly. Yeah. And all they kept doing was believing. Then you got a little spark. And what did the spark start with? Lindor walking. Vientos strikes out. No problem. Nimmo, base hit. Now you're like, could it be? Could it?
All of us said double play, his Mets career is over. Like that was
and you know what? Through 2 innings before that, everybody at the ballpark I was at was saying the same thing. They were like, yeah, it's going to come down to Pete. He's going to ground out, and that's going to be how it ends. And I'm going to go back because I said on our show the day before in game 2, they said, who do you think is going to be the player that makes a difference in the series? Pete Alonso, 3-run home run to give him the lead. I said that. but I'm not bragging about it. I said it the day before thinking they would win that game. I also said that they would win 4-2. I was just a day early. However, just to think of the improbability of what we just saw off of Devin Williams, who, by the way, if you haven't seen the John Boy breakdown about how he was tipping his pitches,
right? Yeah.
He was tipping his pitches, and you could see the swings were really good against him. They weren't, like, oh my God, what an amazing changeup swing and miss. They were on almost all those pitches. He just has really plus stuff.
You think the hitters notice that in the moment like that? Really? Okay.
Absolutely. You know why? Because all they're doing is watching it all day long. They're watching it all day long, knowing that what they're looking for is just that little bit of tell that lets them know that that pitch is coming. Again, you still have to hit it. The speed changes, the location changes, all those different things. Tremendous at bats, locked in at bats with the year on the line. And you get Lindor to walk, you get Nimmo to hit a base hit. And again, just put the ball back in play. He batted .214, but we need you right now. Be that guy. He did. Pete hits the home run. Then they added on, of course, and Winker gets a bit of
the insurance and Winker throwing the helmet, like with all that he's been through this series and clearly hating him. I don't know if there's something with Willie Adames, like baby mama. What the hell's going on with them two and why they hate each other? What happened in that clubhouse? Something happened that we don't know. But that was a cool moment added on that I honestly almost forget about because the euphoria in the stadium after the home run, and you mentioned the three guys, Figgy, and it's really the three faces of the franchise. I know Alonso hasn't been that, but it's Lindor the face, Nimmo the face because he's locked in for a contract, and the guy who might be on his way out that a lot of fans before this season wanted to be the face along with Lindor, and he just wasn't this year. And it's that moment that cements himself in his Mets legacy, and whether he goes or stays, it's a hell of an ending if it goes. And if he comes back, I think the naysayers like me now live with it because we needed that one big cojones moment. And he finally got it. His whole Mets career has never done that. Because I was talking earlier, Figgy, about the San Diego series. You know, we were on the field credentialed. I was like, I'm worried about my eyes are going to burn in the clubhouse celebrating with them. I didn't know what to do. I was talking to you. I was like, you have any glasses? You got any goggles? Like, how are you going to do this? And they didn't do anything. They didn't show up. They laid flat on their face. And Alonso's never had that. He's had a couple of walk-offs here and there in games that didn't mean a ton, but this was his legacy moment. And for the three head honchos to do it in the ninth was just another chapter in the story, in this Mets story.
Again, as I've said, I think one of the things I have loved and lived through this season as a fan is the twists and the turns, and the Christian Scott coming up, Christian Scott going out with Tommy John, Nunez, what a find, Nunez gone, Brooks Raley, he's our only lefty, gone. We sat there yesterday, same thing. How did you not have a lefty ready in game 2 against a lefty who came up? Not a pinch hitter. He wasn't a pinch hitter. He was in the game. So you should have had that lefty just in case, right? You would think. So a mistake maybe by the rookie manager not having somebody ready, but did he really have the confidence to go to Danny Young or Alex Young or whoever Young, the Young and the Restless, whoever it was, didn't have the confidence to do that. So he lived with his decision of Maton. He gave up the home run. And you learn from these experiences. And that's all this team has done is throughout the year, go and battle, find a way to compete, win or lose, learn something, get better. I'm telling you now that the series that they had at home, and again, it's not going to be at home, it's going to start out in Philadelphia, but that series that they had at home at the end of the year where they won 3 out of 4 and people are like, oh, well, the Phillies didn't have anything to play for. Really? Aaron Nola threw 100 pitches. Wheeler went into the 8th. Right? So if you had nothing to play for, then those guys go 5 and dive and you don't care. That wasn't what was happening. What was happening was they wanted those guys to feel it out, make pitches, maybe pitch a little bit differently just to try things out against the Mets team and see what they do with this lineup. And then they realize, oh my God, we're in the game. This is a game. These guys are battling. These guys are actually good. It's still funny to me that people don't think the Mets are good. Best team in baseball since June 1st. Right? Best team in baseball, but people don't think that this team is good. Now, I even said that Alvarez didn't have the season that we thought he would have, still batting .213. Vientos was a savior, hitting 24 plus home runs. So you had guys who did the thing. JD Martinez disappeared in September. Disappeared, but had a huge hit when you needed it the most with those bases loaded in game 1, right? Again, Mendoza pulled that card. What he went with? The veteran. And what was the celebration? Right before the celebration, who did he say? JD Martinez said in the beginning in spring training, he was going to take us to the playoffs.
He
And
said,
he
"I
did.
think playoffs are addicting, or I'm addicted to the playoffs." Something like
I'm
that.
addicted to the playoffs. And he said he would take them to the playoffs. That was Carlos Mendoza's quote before they went champagne all over the place. Is that, and I'm like, of all things, you're quoting JD Martinez? You had Lindor, who's your MVP.
But
You had OMG.
But what?
And he went with a veteran presence who, even though he struggled, you know he's in that dugout helping these guys. You know he's in that dugout telling these guys what to look for, what to expect, and his knowledge of the pitchers from the box, not from an analytical perspective. So you have to have guys like that. We talk about it all the time. We talked about it in previous years on our show. The mix, talent, veteran presence, and there's always a guy waiting to have a breakout. We're having all that all at once right now.
But what makes it special, also, Figgy, and with JD and guys who've struggled, it took every single one of those wins in the regular season to get in. They lose any of those games, and this team is done. To the point Omar Narvaez had a walk-off for this team. People forgot he was on the roster. If Omar Narvaez doesn't have that walk-off, which was his first home hit at Citi Field in the month of May, it took until May for Omar Narvaez to have a home hit. If he doesn't have that hit, the Mets aren't in the playoffs. JD Martinez, you talk about his struggles. He did have his times to shine, and he even had a moment. He had his first walk-off of his career off a guy that we wanted the Mets to trade for in Tanner Scott. He hits a walk-off of him. I mean, it took every one of these Mets magic moments for this team to even play on Tuesday and Monday, and for these games to matter. And that's why it's been 1 through 40, 1 through 30. It's been every player. And you made a good point about Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil doesn't struggle. Do we see Candelita? And it took Jeff, McNeil was hurt and banged up a little bit, but there finally came a time where Iglesias was taking his playing time away from him. And if McNeil, hits 250 instead of 220, do we see Candelita? So it's like these little things in this season, and it's got to be like a 10-part series on Netflix, or SNY, whoever airs it. It needs to be a series because one episode doesn't do justice to storylines. That moment. So here's how I. How do you celebrate that moment? Like, were you also screaming and yelling? What was your celebration like?
So it was funny for me. I was filming something out in Long Island, and I'm at Baseball Heaven, which is now called the Sorter Legacy. And there's like 12 fields, right? So you got softball going on, you got baseball going on, you got all kinds of things going on. And we're waiting in between scenes to reset the cameras and everything. And we're watching the game intently. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I got to watch the 9th inning. So we're watching it. We're huddled up around the phone, and the walk happens. All right. A little something. Then the strikeout. All right. At least it wasn't a double play. We're still all right. I sat there and I go, Alonso's going to have a chance to get up. I go, now we just need to make sure Nimmo doesn't ground to a double play. So when you hit the ball up the middle, I'm like, please don't let that guy be sitting right there at second base, with the shift and everything else. Nope. Base hit, clears it. All right, here he goes. It's Pete Alonso. It's 3-2. It's, you're sitting there just kind of hoping, praying. And all of a sudden, you start hearing roars from each field. Like, because the feeds are different, a delay for different ones. You start hearing a roar just coming around all over. And then it gets to our field where everybody's holding their phones. And we go absolutely ape. Like, that just happened. In a year of OMG moments, that just happened. And Pete Alonso, for, like you said, face of the franchise, since he came up, remember, he started out with the LFGM, right? Or LFGM. LFGM. When he came out with that as a rookie, who's this kid? He got an opportunity right away and never looked back. Broke the rookie home run record. If it wasn't for COVID, he probably catches Ralph Kiner's record for, the first 4 seasons of a guy's career. He just continued to show you things that we hadn't seen before, and especially in a Met uniform, the prodigious power that we saw. Averaging 35 plus home runs, averaging over 100 RBIs, and he had a down year this year, but he was still, there were moments that he just wasn't Pete Alonso. The strikeout totals, the swing and misses and big moments. We haven't seen a clutch Pete Alonso. This moment, whether he comes back or not, is his moment. Now He's not done yet. Hopefully this is a spark that can propel him, because we know what he can do in that little ballpark in Citizens Bank. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if this is the moment that propels him, because all he said, remember, he was the one, there was 3 people that spoke at the meeting. Stearns, Mendoza, and Pete Alonso said, I want to get back into the playoffs. Get me back to the playoffs. And he kept the playoff moment alive for the Mets. So
And
it's a great story.
It's poetic because his last homer was in Philadelphia against the Phillies, and now he's back to Philadelphia. You're right, a place, a bandbox ballpark that he's had a lot of success in. He's hit home runs. It was an incredible moment. Let's not take away from it, but they need him. They need him to keep it going here in Philly. So let's talk about that series now. Mets Phillies, Saturday 4:00, Sunday 4:00. Selfishly, I was hoping one of them was 7, so ticket prices would go down a bit because prices are insane right now in Philadelphia. But I think 4:00 is cool because they win, you celebrate. But the fans are brutal there. Like, I'm worried. If I go, I'm gonna get beer poured on me. I already got my nipple grabbed a few weeks ago when I went by a Philly fan after the game, so that was wild. So this is gonna be tough. This is a Phillies team that's got a lot of juice offensively, who has a pretty good starting rotation, pretty good bullpen. But in my opinion, Figgy, like you saw with Arizona, you're seeing with the Mets, Arizona last season.
Mm-hmm.
The team riding high, the team that's playing every day, that keeps going, that's resilient. Coming in October, who comes in hot? The Detroit Tigers. What a story they've been. As much as we love a Subway Series, World Series, I don't think you could sleep on the Tigers in the AL and the way they're playing. This is going to be a tough one for the Mets, but I think just because of the way they're playing right now and how they're playing together, I feel like that is going to triumph, the powerhouse Philly team.
Baseball has its storylines that are created as seasons go on, and we have recent history to tell you that this is a special, special year, and that I don't think it's going to slow down. They have one day off. 2 day. They have one day off, and now they're playing on Saturday. If you look at recent history, you have Arizona last year. You had the Phillies 2 years ago themselves, who wild card and ran away with it and went all the way to the World Series. You go back to 2019, and in a similar fashion, the Nationals were, after 50 games, 19-31. Then caught fire, were the best team in baseball in the second half. And they got a little Venezuelan backup outfielder from the Diamondbacks, and he had a song. Didn't he have a song? The Baby Shark? And they rode the Baby Shark wave, even though Parra wasn't, the guy that was hitting all the home runs and doing everything else. But they rode that wave, that energy, the ballpark, the fans, all of that mattered. It became a thing. And they rode it all the way to a championship. The year after, they got rid of their superstar or didn't re-sign the superstar. So baseball doesn't care about one guy. You have a team that believes now. You have a team that believes in each other, that everybody on that team can have a moment. Tyrone Taylor, he's been unbelievable playing center field. Harrison Bader could step up and hit you a home run or make an unbelievable catch that saves the game. You have a deep roster of guys who are taking this opportunity. Severino, Manaea, where they were cast-offs and given an opportunity to, hey, get better, continue to grow. And this whole roster believes in each other. The front office believes in the coaching believes in the players believe in the coaches, they believe in the front office, and they all are on the same page with the same message. That was something that we talked about with Billy Epler. We never saw. Nobody knew what the hell was going on with the front office and what they thought when they were trading away people, and it was dysfunction all the way around. That's not this team. Because why? Stearns and Mendoza have meetings with the players to tell them what's going on, to tell them what they're thinking, to tell them what's the vibe from within, that the message. Mendoza said it in spring training. This is about conversations and relationships. And as much as we wanted to make fun of it, because that was his slogan, his catchphrases when the beginning of the season was, those were important to establish the respect, the mutual respect, because these guys didn't know Mendoza. They don't know what his message is or his style of play. He didn't have one. He said the team will tell me what style of play we can do. You could build a roster and be like, oh, well, Brandon Nimmo should steal 30 bases. He's not a base stealer. That's not his thing, right? You got so many different levels and variables and all the things that happen. And Mendoza never batted an eyelash and said, woe was me. Diaz gets suspended. Diaz gets injured. We'll figure it out. We're going to keep playing good baseball.
He's
and
been
he just
a
a
quiet assassin is a good way. Like very under the radar, doesn't make that mojo speech. He just lets the guys have fun, and he makes baseball moves in games that we have not seen from Terry Collins, from Luis Rojas, from Mickey Callaway, from everyone who was here before. I would hate even uttering the names because they give me nightmares. And Carlos Mendoza give me nightmares. He's giving me smiles and a reason to believe in him as the future. Not only him, but David Stearns, who is just a mastermind, and Steve Cohen now, who leaves, his day-to-day ventures at .72 because he's full-on invested in this team. Top to bottom, everything's falling into place, and the Mets are ahead of the program, and Mendoza's been a key part of that. But us not talking, I always say this, not talking about him has been a reason to talk about him because he's just been that quiet assassin leader for this team.
Yeah, we in the past, everything was always about a soundbite, right? There was a soundbite that come out. There was a, did you hear what he said? Can you believe?
Yeah.
Right. Can you believe what he did? Did you hear what he said? And it just, you never got that sense. What you got the sense of, and Mendoza has said it time and time again, we are in this together. We need to play better. And it was always a we. It's not they. It's not, I'm the manager and I'm doing everything right. He knows he's learning on the fly. He managed in 2009 the last time. He managed in winter ball, which is where apparently I knew him from. I didn't even realize it at the time. He managed it in winter ball in Venezuela, and that's where Quintana knew him, and he had a relationship with him. So Quintana, being a veteran, could vouch for him and say, no, this guy's really good. Like, go talk to him. Go sit in his office. He was getting to know Senga in spring training. Come sit in my office. Let's talk and just laugh. And let me see what kind of, what kind of character you are. And he's like, man, Senga's really funny. So those are the little things that the old school managers, it was always, closed door. I'll let you know when you can come in kind of thing. And the new school manager who knows that, man, a lot of the lineup stuff, a lot of the analytical stuff before games and how he can explain it to the player has to be done in a way that it pacifies those players. Lindor is still the anomaly. He's trying to play 162 of 162, and they let him. They haven't been able to talk him out of that, right? And there was no reason not to let him because that's the thing. That's what he does. It'd be better off if we could sit him, for 30 games and be able to rest him a little bit. And it would be, but that's just not it. And they didn't talk him out of that. They didn't try to be look, you're going to do it our way or else. And he flourished. He absolutely flourished after May, after he got moved to the leadoff spot. So I think this is a team that has no longer hopes. It's more of a reality. It's there for the taking. It's there for the taking. And sure, is it daunting? The Phillies, one of the best offenses in baseball, a team with one of the best records in baseball. Sure, it's daunting. But how many times have we seen it in the last 2 years that these teams that win over 100 games get knocked out in the first round? You can't just expect it to go as scripted. And this year's team was unscripted, whether it was or not with the Seymour Wiener. I don't know how they missed that one. But it started with Seymour Wiener, and it went on to every month. It was, oh my God, did you see what the Mets did? Did you see they're doing hot dog night? Did you see that? OMG, he's singing after a win against the Baltimore Orioles. Did you see that? They moved Lindor up. He's struggling. They moved him up to the leadoff spot. What is going on here? How is this all happening? And yet there's flaws to this team. Don't get me wrong, but it's the ends justify the means, right? So it's a sum of all the parts that has made this team so special. I told you, go down the roster. You're not going to be impressed with any of the numbers. You're really not. You're not going to sit there and go, they got 10. Remember the Braves teams? They've got 10 guys who've hit 20 home runs. You're not going to find that in the Mets roster. You're not. But they get on. They play fundamental baseball. They play much better defense than they have ever had, especially up the middle. And as long as this bullpen can stay as tight as they have, outside of Maton's little, blip, because he pitched 4 out of 5 before that and everything else. Outside of Maton's blip, I like the makeup of this team. I like the fact that they're going up against an opponent they know very, very well. And they get past Philadelphia. And really, I mean, it's like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It's supposed to get harder as you go along, right? I'm looking for them to figure out the little tells in Philadelphia, knock them off the ledge, and then whoever else they meet up on their way to the World Series.
And a bullpen that lost Raleigh, that lost Drew Smith, which for some of us it might have been for the better losing Drew Smith, and who lost Daniel Nunez, who was another one, Jose Budo 1A kind of piece.
Yeah,
there could be another addition. You mentioned him earlier. In the conversation for the NLD roster is Kodai Senga, and if Kodai Senga physically is not able to start, which I think the Mets could still survive if he can't start. I think the rotation would be good. If you can have a Senga be like a Budo 1A and a guy with the ghost forkball to come out of the bullpen and completely fool Philly hitters for 2 innings. Say you get 5 from Peterson, and then Senga comes in there, you're up 2-1, and gives you 2 innings to set up Diaz. What an element it would add to this series. And I think the Mets, if he's okay, have got to look at it that way, because this could be a long October. I know Phillies are calling it a red October. For the Mets, we're hoping it's a long October, or in Pete Alonso's way, an orange October, because the pumpkin is the new rallying cry in the clubhouse, is gourd or whatever he's calling it.
There's always something.
I got to respect it. It went from TJ Rivera, rally dildos, boom, put $1 in the Amazing Mets Foundation jar, to the pumpkin in the clubhouse. A big of an upgrade from a sex toy to a pumpkin in this Mets clubhouse in this story. That is a layer that we've never seen Senga as a reliever. We don't know what he can do. But my God, ghost forkball in the month of Halloween is something I've been dreaming about for weeks since they said he might be back the final week of the season. And if we can get it, Figgy, boy, is that another layer to this series that makes Mets Phillies for the first time ever in October pure cinema.
Doesn't it just make sense? Hey, doesn't it just make sense? It just makes sense, right? It's October, it's Halloween, ghost forkball, go hand in hand. I think if you can do it, you will do it. Honestly, why wouldn't you? If you're not going to pitch the lefties and Danny Young and
anybody else, and if you even I wouldn't even care if you kept Peterson as a reliever, a left-handed reliever, and you use Senga in the same way, and you go with your first 3 starters as you can and see how it goes if you have to use Peterson. I wouldn't care if you did that. I think the Mets are set up, and the versatility is proving to be something that really, really is just an added plus, an added element. And the Senga thing is a great card. I mean, I think it would it would just put this storybook season to that next level. And could you imagine Senga's, say they face the Dodgers, Senga's facing Ohtani, trying to get him out in a big spot. I mean, let's not count our chickens before they hatch. We got to get past the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's not going to be an easy task. But I do think this team is built to go toe to toe, and really, you ride the team that's hot right now, and there's no team hotter in baseball than the Mets.
And David Peterson, you can't forget about the season as, because this is a guy that came off hip surgery, came into the season in May. He was a wild card, and in the wild card, he gets the final out. I mean, that's just so cool. A guy who, like McGill, we're like, he's so inconsistent. What are we going to get? If David Peterson starts opening day as a Cy Young candidate, like, that's how good of a season he had as a starting pitcher. And from that to Candelita, the Candelita lyrics mean a lot today. Throw all the bad things away from here. Give me health and prosperity. I have nothing but I'm happy. Only memories inhabit me. And that was a memory. Dreams to fulfill, and I'm going to achieve them. Pete Alonso had a dream. The Mets had a dream. Maybe I'm crazy. These Mets aren't lazy. Keep going until they achieve it. The lyrics make all the sense. And what's your prediction here? I said Mets. The homer in me wants Mets in 4, because I'm going to go Tuesday and Wednesday at Citi Field. I'm going to make the train ride wasn't terrible the way back. It was late. It went by quick because I did WFM with Keith McPherson from the train.
Yep.
I listened back and you could hear like the announcement, next stop, Newark. It was like an hour and 20. The Uber actually cost more from the train station to Cherry Hill at 2 a.m. than the train did. It was $25. So that's pretty wild, but it's not a terrible ride. I got to come back, but selfishly, Figgy, I want them to clinch it at home if they win it. But I think this is going to be a dogfight back against the wall, 5-game series, and the Mets win Game 5 in Philly.
Yeah, no, I'm of the same ilk. Unless they just somehow find a way to knock them down and take care of Nola and Wheeler right off the bat, because that's in itself, if you can split with those two, you're feeling pretty good. So I do think it goes 5. I think it goes 5. I think the Mets still prevail. I just think that it's their time. It's their time. It's no longer a fluke. It's no longer they're gonna come back down to earth. It's now their time to shine. And one day's rest feels like a month's rest to these guys at the pace that they've been playing and traveling and everything else. So get back with the families, get back rejuvenated, have a nice nap here and realize what you're in the midst of, and get right back to it the next day. You don't want the momentum to stop.
It took the death of Amazing but True. It took my former employer getting rid of the show, but we got the last laugh because you got rid of it. And the Mets are in October and having the best season of arguably my lifetime in terms of fun and joy. And it's a sign from the gods above. And now it's the Mets and Phillies. Figgy, we finally got a clincher to celebrate. It was a cool moment, but let's not end it here. I think I keep saying house money, Figgy. I think this team, if they lose this round, it's still an incredible season. I think winning last night was the moment that cemented it. I think a lot of people would have been mad if they went out not scoring and being 6 outs away the day prior from, sweeping that series. I think this was a message that, this team's not going to go out without a fight. And that's why I think it'll go 5. And if the Phillies win, the place is buzzing. That stadium atmosphere is scary to play at. Like, they're very good in October. The whole Bryson Stott, whatever that damn song is that I'm going to have to hear this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be OMG. No OKs. We got 3 letters. You got 2. And the Mets are going to win 3. Phillies are going to win 2. Hey, you like that? That was kind of cool. He's Nelson Figueroa. Catch him on Pix 11.
And you didn't even know it.
I'm really a poet. Oh, look at spitting bars. I haven't dropped a rap this season. I'll save it for when the Mets go to the World Series.
There you go.
That'll be the rap. We'll have JR on here. Nelson Figueroa, catch him on Pix 11, Sports Nation Night. Are you guys going to be doing any special pre or post game shows or something here for the next round?
I don't know, because we don't have any other coverage. So we'll probably put together something. We started out with Mets on a Mission was our rally cry for the Mets going out in this season. And so I think we should at least catch up to the, not necessarily Mets fan, but all the fans around baseball who haven't been watching the Mets. So the Yankee fans can watch, because, me, only thing better than Mets moving on is the Yankees have to go home. So.
Well, that's going to be, Royals, Yankees is an interesting series because a lot of Yankee fans have already bought their World Series tickets, assuming the Astros are out. Well, the Astros are out, or assuming that they're going to have an easy road.
Yeah.
That's
remember this, right? Remember in 2015, the Mets were 0-7 against the Cubs. 0-7 against the Cubs, and then they swept them in 4 games to get to the World Series.
Well, that's why, someone I think Michael Barron tweeted, oh, this house of horrors, the Mets can't beat the Brewers. I'm like, the regular season is different. When you look at roster matchup, don't look at, the Brewers stole so many bases against us in the regular season. There's 2 different brands of baseball. And like I keep saying, the Brewers haven't had a meaningful game in 2 months because they've had the division locked up forever. They've had a 10-game lead. It's been over. So, I thought that was dumb for a lot of people wanting San Diego. You're seeing what San Diego put a beat down on the Braves both games. They have a scary offense, a scary atmosphere, a place the Mets didn't want to play in, and a longer flight. You got to factor in the Mets would have to go to San Diego after celebrating a trip to the wild card. I think the shorter trip back to Milwaukee, they had a little bit comfort being there over the weekend, kind of knowing their hotel situation, where to get a coffee, where to get lunch, where to get a sausage, where to get beer and cheese. They knew everything from over the weekend, and I think that helps. So everything's kind of aligning. Now we get cinema. This is going to be great. This is going to be an Oscar-winning series. Let's hope that the Mets will take it, and hopefully, Figgy, we can talk as the Mets advance to the NLCS, because that would be pretty damn awesome, and this team deserves it. I know you got a busy day ahead. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Be good.
That's Nelson Figueroa. Great stuff there. You got half 30 minutes of me. You got 30 with Figgy. Fun show. We got an hour and 15 minutes. Listen, the clinch is going to be longer. I appreciate all of you for watching. read the comments. New York Flight Jets talking my man Jake. What's up, Connor? G Money Stacks, LFGM, Diane laughing. Do we see the churn in Philly? No, Joey Lucchese won't be on the roster. Jose Budo, critical part of the team. I agree. So yeah, that's it. We'll be back after game 2. We'll do a show after the 2 games in Philly, either Sunday or Monday. We'll see. Sunday, I'm likely almost definitively going to be at the game. Saturday is TBD. Might watch in Philly. We'll see what happens. But hey, if you're listening, you got a cheap ticket or you want to go with me or whatever, let me know. Because I am interested in going, but let's see about these prices going down. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Smash that thumbs up, please, if you're still watching on YouTube. Comment below. Share this with your friends. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let all your Met friends know to subscribe, to join the Mets Magic Party, because we're taking you through, hopefully, a deep October, maybe into early November. Can the Mets go to the World Series? Last night was special. Enough out of me. An hour, 15 minutes. Mets Phillies game 1 tomorrow 4:00. Game 2 Sunday 4:00. We'll see you Sunday night, Monday morning after game 2 before the Mets return home for finally Citi Field home playoff baseball. The atmosphere is going to be unlike any other, and we can't wait for it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to Mets Magic on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Subscribe to Jake Brown Radio. Follow me wherever you are on social media. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and thank you, Pete Alonso, for making us eat our words. Thank you to the Mets for continuing to give us memories, and we hope we have a few more left in the arsenal. We got more baseball to play, baby. Let's go, Mets. This is Mets Magic. We'll talk to you after game 2.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.